God, man of the woods, what's going on? God, I haven't seen you in so long.
My man, what has happened? Long time, no see. Yes, sir.
What have you been up to?
Same old shit, man.
Yeah?
Working for the city.
Working man, huh?
Been thinking about getting back in school, though, man.
Back in JC or something like that?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's where all the girls are, right?
Yes, they are.
But on the other hand, man, I just as soon keep working. Keep a little change in my pocket.
Yeah? Wait.
Rather than spend my time listening to some dipshit who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about anyway.
I know what you're talking about.
Say, you're a freshman, right?
Yeah.
Well, so tell me, man, how's this year's crop of freshman chicks looking?
What, you're gonna end up in jail sometime really soon, I know that. Fact.
No, man. No, man, I tell you.
Yeah.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Yes, they do. Go.
Yes, they do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stuff We've Seen. This is Jim. And now, here he is, the debate and prep coach for former VP Joe Biden, Teal. Again, I might have to suggest a different line of work because you didn't do so well there, buddy.
No, I'm thinking of getting out of the game entirely.
Or maybe you did too well. You're sinking fast. Yeah.
Yep.
Time for some fresh blood.
Yes. I'm not passing that torch yet. I'm holding on to that torch.
Yeah, you got a second or third debate to really seal the deal there.
Yeah, and then you can pry that torch from my cold, dead hands.
I'm thinking one or two more debates, and that guy's going to be toast because he's just not going to do, because they're all going to come after him with Brutus daggers. And
So aside from the debates, you seen anything else?
Well, it is summer movie season.
Yes.
And I didn't get to see yesterday. I think I mentioned to you I was going to see.
Oh, yes,
yesterday.
you did, yeah.
And I didn't get to see that. Plans changed. But I did get to see Toy Story 4, which I believe you were headed off to the drive-ins to see.
Exactly, yes. And we have I'm going to put drive-in in quotes for this because it's not what you picture when you picture your traditional drive-in.
Well, I saw a photo you said, and it had the drive-in screen, but it looked very small.
Yeah, I mean, the photo made the screen look smaller than it actually is, but it's basically like some telephone poles with plywood nailed to it.
Okay.
Kind of out in this meadow, and then it's actually interesting. It's like stadium seating for the cars almost. Like there's different levels you can park on.
Well, that's good because that's one of the hard things with today's cars. A lot of people will put their trunks up and things, and it becomes hard to see.
And so everybody put their trunk up and sat in the back of the car watching the movie, which was great. And yeah, so it's a little drive-in. Basically, this guy had an empty lot behind his movie theater.
Oh, was the theater still there, or that's gone?
Oh no, the movie. So this is just behind our multiplex.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's a very enterprising local guy, and yeah, so he basically it's with a theater projector. He just turned it around, so projecting out the backside of the building. And I guess you could probably fit maybe 30 cars there.
Oh, wow. So it's a pretty small deal.
It's a very small deal. It's kind of hard to maneuver your car in there. It's $15 per carload.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, not bad at all. And, there aren't any speakers anymore. You tune your radio in.
Right. It's all radio now.
Yeah. And it was supposed to start at 8:30, but of course it wasn't dark. And
oh, yeah. No, those things.
So it started closer to 9. And so, yeah, they had to wait for it to get it a little bit dark, but it was still kind of washed out at the beginning of the movie from the light.
Which is the classic drive-in way. I mean, in my day, they didn't even wait. They would start it even earlier, and you literally watched the first half hour, and you couldn't see a thing.
Right, yes. But there's something about sitting there in the back of the car, eating your bag of popcorn that you brought with you, and there's fireflies flying around, and there's kids running around, and it's kind of a magical experience. And in a way, I think you've touched on this before, it changes the movie in a way. It makes the experience part of the movie, and so it changes the way that I view the movie. I liked this movie, and I don't know how much of me liking it was because of the environment that I saw it in, because I was so charmed by this drive-in experience that it put me in a good mood. And when you're in that frame of mind, you don't want to dislike the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost how I go into almost every movie.
Right.
I bought a ticket because I was anticipating that I would like it, and I generally, if I want to call myself a critic, I try to go in to a movie on the plus side.
Yes.
And then a movie has to work against itself for me to not like it.
Right. Sometimes I have really low expectations, or I have a grudge against a movie for some reason.
Like Midsommar.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Which, again, I'm going to try to give it as clean a slate as possible when I go to see it, because my theater is going to be playing it, and so I will hope to see it by the time we speak next.
Okay. Yeah, so all of this is to say basically that I liked Toy Story 4 because it was a good summer evening for me.
Now, was it just one movie, or did you not stay for the second movie?
It's just one movie.
Okay, so the way he set it up, it's not like your typical drive-in where you'd see two films.
Exactly. And even if there had been a second film, we would have left.
Yeah, that's the thing is, it's funny. When I was a kid, I stayed up and we watched these double features. And I always knew that the second movie started late, but I just think it was a special treat for me while I got to stay up late. My parents were very young parents.
Right.
And they are certainly, at the time I was a child, were much younger than I am now, because I would have a very hard time staying up till 1:30, 2 in the morning, and then driving home 45 minutes.
Yeah. And my 7-year-old was basically asleep by the end of the movie. I asked her in the car on the way home, "What do you think of the movie?" And she said, "I'm too tired to make my brain think."
Oh, yeah, that was also it's a weird thing. This is what I loved most about the drive-ins. I would have to really stretch to stay awake.
Yes.
And then the film was over, and there would always be a good, at least 20-minute car ride home. And I never lived that close to a drive-in as a kid. Maybe it was a half an hour. It was the greatest half an hour drive of my life, because I would feel the car moving, but I would fall into instant sleep. And then I would be so exhausted that I didn't want to get out of the car.
Right.
Because I would have to brush my teeth, and it was that thought of, I'm so tired, I don't want to brush my teeth, I just want to go to bed. And it was just that weird feeling of just that you only got from driving home from a drive-in as a child. And I think that's why you it's an experiences. You didn't have that many experiences seeing
Not that
films
many
at the drive-ins, and now you got to experience it with your girls.
Exactly, and they loved it because it was the drive-in. In part, just the experience of it. But they actually, they have not talked about the movie since we saw it. My eldest daughter kept saying that, I forget the name of the character, but the doll in the antique shop.
Oh.
Chatty Cathy or something?
She was a Chatty Cathy type doll.
Right.
No, I don't even remember the name.
I can't remember the name, but my eldest daughter just kept saying, She's Chucky. Don't trust her.
Might be a crossover for a future episode.
It might be, yeah. But she did look a little bit like Chucky. I can understand the association.
So you liked it. It's the experience of going to the drive-ins you liked. But
exactly. And, I liked the first Toy Story. I actually am a fan of Toy Story 2. I love the whole 2 Buzz Lightyear thing.
Now, you said you're like, I'm actually a fan of Toy Story 2. Is there a reason why you might not be? Like, I mean, is there something that you feel that you have to explain that?
Oh, no, I think, I didn't mean it that way.
I'm not leading you, but I do feel that over time, people somehow have dismissed Toy Story 2. I actually think that's the best of the Toy Story movies.
I do too. I think it's the best.
It's the best story.
Yeah, I think it has the best story. It is the funniest to me.
Yes. I think it's the most imaginative.
Yes.
Also, it was the time, I don't know where to start with this, but because we kind of got into this area, and I don't know whether I should take it from one step to the other, but there was a time with Pixar's evolution,
yes,
where they were getting better with each movie as far as their technology.
Right.
Because if you go back and watch the original Toy Story, I mean, you can practically see where the wireframes are. Like it's from 1995.
Yeah.
And the technology was amazing for that moment, but it's pretty rickety now. And by the time 4 years later, you watch Toy Story 2, and there were things they could do. And even with the humans, that was like their big failing point, where it's hard to make the human characters look not so weird. And so they were getting better. So that was also another treat when you'd see these Pixar movies, is just how amazing their evolution was. And then also when other digital animated movies were coming out trying to compete with Pixar, it would be like,
you realize just how good Pixar is?
Yeah, it was sort of like, Pixar was the ILM, where they were just, scores ahead. And so now, and not Toy Story 4, but pretty much any of the Pixar movies, the dazzle aspect is gone.
Yes, because
they're so handsomely made, but they just
look good.
Yeah, there's no way visually that they're able to raise the bar any more than they have.
No, not really. I think it's about sure, it can get better. They can get higher resolution and so forth, but I think they're kind of at as good as the technology needs to be to make these movies.
Yeah. And I think that's been, it's not anybody's fault. I guess it's part of the evolution, but that was part of the magic of Pixar movies.
Yes.
And also going from sort of being, an adult that didn't have kids, but these Pixar movies also offered something for adults. And then having kids at the sort of heyday of them and watching the joy that they brought my kids.
Well, and that's the thing. It's now, 25 years later almost?
Yeah, 24 years.
And so people that were kids with Toy Story now have kids.
Yes. And so, my littlest is not, I wouldn't say he's not a Pixar fan. He's not the generation where Pixar mattered as much as my oldest son.
Right.
And for him, going to see Toy Story 4 was to catch up on these characters, and he has a lot of his own nostalgia for his youth.
Right.
And I'm saying youth, he's not even 11, but you know what I mean.
But when he was 5, he has nostalgia for that. Yeah.
He would watch these movies on Blu-ray over and over again. And my littlest, if we said we're not seeing Toy Story 4, he wouldn't have batted an eye.
Right.
But we all went to see that, I think because of the way that the movie that they wanted to see didn't kind of pair up with the same time that Yesterday did. So we felt, let's just go see a movie we could all see together. And I have to tell you, while I will give this film a sort of a passable grade, I will slightly recommend it, I was not a big fan.
Okay.
I really thought that this film did not need to exist. It didn't.
Of course it doesn't need to exist.
No, but here's the thing. There's a few things. They broke their own rules. It's like movies that break their own rules. So part 3, while it wasn't my favorite of the 3 movies, and it is a lot of people's favorite,
really? That's definitely not my favorite.
It had, I think, the most emotionally satisfying ending.
I think that's probably true. Yeah.
And it has an ending that I think even with more I saw it, because I had a small child who watched it several times.
I've only seen it twice, so
I enjoyed parts more watching it, again and again than I did when I originally saw it. But the ending, especially having a child, it brings a lot of emotion. The idea that you have to let go and you're passing your toys on, and that you're not going to see these toys again.
Yeah.
So they had this amazing ending and a really nice conclusion to the story.
Yeah.
Then 9 years later, suddenly they decide to make this other film, which I know it wasn't 9 years later when they decided to make it. But then, 8 writer teams later, they come up with this story, and you're like, this is what they've come up with?
I did feel that. Well, I felt like it was almost like a side story.
I wish it was just a side story. But they did that in some shorts. They made some shorts that were side stories.
Yes, but this felt like a feature-length one of those side stories to me. Like, it didn't feel like it was part of the overall arc of the series, which is what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but except that you say side stories, but it's a side story where, spoiler alert, Woody decides to leave the nest and away from all his friends at the end of the movie.
Yes.
That's more than a side journey.
Oh, no, it's way more than a side journey. But I guess what I'm saying is that the movie didn't feel like it had that weight that Toy Story 3 had at the end. You were talking about that emotional weight. And this whole movie is kind of a trifle in a way.
Well, the movie, the first movie, believe it or not, I don't even really like that much because I liked how it started, and then pretty quickly it went off into this big sort of story where the rescue of the bad kid across the way, and then most of it didn't involve all the other toys. It involved just Woody and Buzz Lightyear.
Right.
The second movie involved all the toys.
Yes, and a few new ones.
And it had what a great concept, the idea that Woody could find almost stardom by the fact that he was he was a worth money toy.
Right.
And that you could make a case that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to go off and, be a collector's item.
Exactly. But and at the same time, Buzz is realizing that he's not unique.
Yeah. So there was a ton that went on in that. And by the end of that movie, it was a great adventure. And you said, hey, I could watch another one. And then they didn't do one for many years, which it was sort of like, well, okay. And then they made a film that it was great. This idea of 9 years later, what happens when you were a favorite toy, you've been in the attic, and now, they might be getting rid of you. But they did a key thing. They involved all of the key toys.
Yes.
So now we get to Toy Story 4, and it's back to the side story of Woody and all of the characters that you kind of want to interact with are pretty much relegated to one line.
Yeah. What's his name? The dinosaur is barely in it.
Yeah, they kind of really shift. So they put them aside, and then they create the story where it starts off confusing because it starts with a flashback. It says 9 years ago, which is is a script writing no when the movie that it last preceded was 9 years ago. So when they say 9 years ago, but then they show Andy as a kid, you're like, wait a minute, what
Wait,
you catch on quick, but not a kid won't catch on. They won't understand.
No, the kids don't get that at all.
So already that was a bad mistake, because this is the first time where once you get back into the present, now this Bonnie, the new owner, she's only maybe had the toys for a short period of time.
Right, exactly. And I'd like to add, this was this whole flashback sequence was during the part of the movie where I could barely see the screen.
Ah, okay. So I'm telling you what happened.
Thank you, because I missed a lot of this intro.
Well, if you missed it, it was 9 years ago.
Well, I did see the title card.
But so they come back, and now it takes place sometime after the story for Toy Story 3 took place. But yet in our time, it's 9 years later.
Right.
But they're taking a story that they haven't been with this Bonnie for very long, because the idea is she's going to go to kindergarten, and she was in preschool, and you had the sense that she was probably like a 4-year-old in the last movie.
Right.
So she's now going to be
5
You
or
know, so
6.
yeah, and I don't buy the I don't not buy the fact that she'd probably be tired of these toys after a short period of time because that's what kids do. But the problem is we just had this adventure where the whole idea was the whole team of them coming together and they love each other. They get to all be together. And now this movie basically says we're going to split you apart and we're going to create this weird thing with Woody kind of always just trying to, be of purpose, and then decides he's going to go off at the end of the movie with the Bo Peep and leave his friends. It was terrible.
So the flashback at the beginning, the whole purpose of it is to sell us on the Woody Bo Peep love story.
Yeah, and it didn't, and then the movie itself didn't sell us on it.
Right, but the other movies hadn't sold us on that love story. Is my point.
Well, she wasn't in the third movie,
right?
And so that was the whole question of what happened to her, because she was in the girls' room and maybe got,
exactly.
As we learned.
Yeah, so we find out what happened. But my point is, we were not, as audience members, not emotionally attached to that storyline from the first 3 movies. The Woody Bo Peep relationship was not something we were that emotionally invested in. We're invested in the Woody Buzz relationship. Okay, so your real issue here is the end of the movie.
Well, no. I mean, but it was the whole plot is driven. I just think that there was such a great opportunity to set it 9 years in the future again, finding them in that same situation.
Yeah.
But also they could have done an amazing montage if they're going to do flashbacks to show a journey over the years of them getting,
right.
loved and then donated and this and that. And then Woody doing all these heroic things. They could have done this montage that really built up the fact that Woody needed to have a purpose. And also he could have shown, since they didn't use his buddies, right, that they were all gone, you could have shown them one by one breaking and going away and all of this stuff. And then he's left where he's clinging to just, he can't let go. That could have been amazing. And how can I come up with this in 2 seconds, but 8 writers could not?
But that's what I'm saying is that the movie felt light to me. I got a couple of chuckles. There were some fun sort of imaginative sequences, sort of action sequences.
Well, there's one thing that to me, if this wasn't in the movie, I wouldn't even recommend it. But this is so great, and it adds to the whole, the whole mythology of the Toy Stories, and it just becomes, it's actually one of my favorite characters now is Duke Caboom.
Oh, Duke Caboom was hilarious, and
I want the Duke Caboom doll. They make it with the motorcycle and the it's just Keanu Reeves creates a performance and a character that is just awesome.
And while we're on this too, the other thing that I would recommend this movie for is I liked Forky.
I liked him more than I thought I was going to like him based on the previews, but you know what? This is my problem is I didn't like him enough that I think that Woody should have gone to all the trouble to rescue him. Because after all, Forky just wanted to be trash. And that part was funny that, Forky's like, trash.
That part was funny. No, but that's what I mean by I liked Forky. I got some
And
laughs
I get it.
out
See,
of Forky.
what he doesn't realize is that kids, when they make something like Forky, he is important until they lose him or he breaks, and then they forget about him. But Woody doesn't understand that. So that's why he goes after him. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. All right. This is a problem that they've been doing in recent Pixar movies. And I don't know if it's they think it's a tradition, but I hate it.
Right.
And I just find it really ridiculous. It's when they break the rules of their creatures that.
Yes.
So the whole thing is the Toy Story characters shouldn't be interacting with the real world. And
right. And when they do, I agree. I don't like it.
The whole minivan, the camper at the end, that blew it for me. They did the same thing with Finding Dory, and I hated that when the fish were driving the truck.
Yes, yeah, and it's just so far beyond the
Even
concept.
though I know that these are inanimate objects. The rules that they set up was that they do all these things when no humans can ever notice. And sometimes they cheat a little bit here and there, but they cheat too much in this movie.
Yeah, in the first movie, there's the cheat when they freak out Sid by waking up.
Yeah, but that somehow worked. Because Sid was so evil and awful.
Also, it was a kid. Yeah, there was. That's my point. Is like you can see this sort of taking place in Sid's imagination, and so the metaphor.
But they made
works.
the adults they made the father look like a bumbling fool in this movie.
Yes, he was a bumbling.
And I didn't like that. I also think that Disney still has a diversity issue. There's
They really
there's
do.
no main characters. Couldn't Woody, that's the whole thing, is couldn't Bonnie in a montage, he could have been given to an African-American family or something. These people, it was bothering me. And I read an article about somebody that got really...
you hated this. I think you hated this movie.
Put an idea to my head, and I watched a movie thinking about this. Somebody wrote an article about how these Pixar movies, they have a people with disabilities issue, where they lean on this idea that toys that are broken or not perfect aren't loved, and that they have to become perfect, and that this was the case in Toy Story 2, where Woody was ripped or something and he wasn't going to be loved, and that in Toy Story 3, the same thing with Lots of Huggin' Bear guy. He had a cane and he didn't smell anymore. And there was this idea that the toys get broken at the store, they're not wanted, and they can get
they get old
and
or
then
broken.
In this
and
one,
they're
it's
not
possibly
wanted.
even worse, is the idea that this doll who was an antique and could be cool, she was defective from the beginning.
She was defective from the beginning, and so no.
And I know they try to make a point that even when she is perfect, the kid still wasn't interested.
Right, but that's not the point, really.
But so there's a lot of... So, again, 8 writers, and they just have... this movie is a Frankenstein of a lot of flaws, and yet... After all of that, I enjoyed myself because I thought the Duke Caboom and those other action figure guys at the beginning that were more of a cameo, they were really good too.
Okay. So
well, you were at the drive-ins. You could just, you can hardly see the movie and you're just enjoying the experience. Me, I'm in the theater and I'm like, it's the local theater that has the shitty sound, and my new sound bar that I got for my birthday sounds better in my living room than the sound at this place. So I'm not even getting that. So I'm really concentrating on the flaws, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was concentrating on trying to see and hear the movie.
But see, that's the movie. The movie, right, it should be magic, and you shouldn't even notice the flaws until afterwards. You might think, well, this didn't work or that. But my kids, just like your kids, they have not talked about this movie since they saw it. And my oldest thought it was okay, and the youngest thought, I liked it. But that's about all you can say about the movie. You can't walk away going, oh, my God, that was so good.
No. The movie is just pretty good.
And it's just, that's not enough. This is the terrible summer so far. It's the summer of movies,
Yeah, it kind of, I have not seen that movie that I've been excited
I saw John Wick 3. I did like that. And of course, Keanu Reeves is back. This guy is like dominating the summer.
He somehow is, yes. He even dominated E3, the video game convention.
And he also, there's some movie on Netflix that I haven't watched, but he's got a cameo in it, and that's supposed to be pretty good. Anyways, summer movies. While I haven't seen it, it has got me thinking about, the good old days of the summer. There were 2 times of the year that I really looked forward to most, and the end of the year because of the award season, movies were coming out, so I get all the great films, and then in the summer were the big blockbusters. And there'd always be several movies, usually sequels, that you looked forward to, and then they disappointed you a bit, and then there'd be a few gems that you were not expecting.
Yes, a few sort of hidden gems that sometimes you had mentioned this earlier before the show was the movie Predator.
Yeah, so because my oldest wanted to see it. It was on like BBC America, so it was all edited up except for the violence. The violence was still in there. That
leave in the violence, take out the language.
Yeah, so when he says something like "You are an ugly mother," like it was.
But yeah, that was in my teenage years kind of a great summer movie. And that was the
start of the summer film. That was like one of those got you going. It was like early June films. And it's weird. It was like there was a whole philosophy to the way that these blockbusters were released. You had the one, like everybody's got to go see it. That was always the starter movie for the summer, the Memorial Day weekend.
Yep.
And then, okay, that didn't deliver, but like what's coming next? And then you'd get some great early June releases, and those would be good. And then late June would be the next super big blockbuster. And then 4th of July would be the big blockbuster. And then it was usually the meat of July. And then maybe that first week of August is where you might get those gems.
Yes, exactly. They're the movies that didn't quite know how to market them exactly.
Now, I want to tell you a story about one such film.
Okay.
And it was 1985. And this was a summer where I spent an enormous amount of time with my buddy Robert. We were seeing movies almost every day. My mom was dropping us off to the Somerville Theater Revival House, where that particular summer, it was all revival screenings, and they'd sometimes run continuously 5 movies, all different, in one day. And more than one occasion, we would go, and my mom would get us a sub, and we would get some candy, and we'd just sit there all day, and she'd pick us up like at 11. And we got a good education. That's how I caught up on a lot of movies that, the nowadays you can really see these movies if you're interested, streaming or video, but it's going to be harder to see one of them, never mind 5 in one day. So we'd also see things like, Cocoon and, Back to the Future, all those movies that came out that summer. And one day my friend made a suggestion. There was going to be a advanced sneak preview of a film, and it was only going to be like in Harvard Square, which is it was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And now my history with Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman, was at the time relegated to one thing only. He would do these little appearances on MTV, and I found him annoying. I didn't get it. I just did not get the character. And what I didn't know was that he was very popular with colleges, and that he had his like one man, like his Pee-wee Playhouse show that was a little bit more adult themed. And there was an HBO special that they reran later that I didn't see until after I'd seen the film. So I didn't get what he was to like young adults.
Oh, right.
Even though I didn't really want to see it, I had seen the preview for the movie. I was like, okay, I don't know, but sure, let's go. Let's do it. My mom dropped us off down in Harvard Square. Now we go, and I think in our head we thought we might be like the only people going to see Pee-wee's Big Adventure at a special sneak preview. Again, being in high school and not having either one of us knowing that he had a fan base, literally. So we get in. By the time that the screening started, this theater, which was filled with at least good 300 seats, was completely packed with all college students. And we could recognize, and we actually felt like we were the youngest people there. And that surprised us because it was like, I was like, there's something going on that I'm not aware of. How could this guy from MTV be this popular? So within moments when the movie starts, and it was that great Danny Elfman music, and there's this sort of dream about the Tour de France. As soon as Pee-wee's image comes on the screen, scores of people started applauding and shouting and hoopering and hawing, and they were speaking like a language of understanding that the two of us didn't realize. And it was like that from the entire screening. I mean, you could hardly hear at times the dialogue because this audience were Pee-wee fanatics. And it made the movie experience so great. Every moment of that movie. I mean, it just was something that all my life I will not forget where I was that moment, seeing that sneak preview, because it was one of the greatest audience emotional rides.
That's fantastic.
And so when we walked away from that movie, I thought it was like a comic masterpiece.
Well, it kind of
I mean, I've seen it and it holds up, and every kid loves it.
Yeah.
I have seen that movie at minimum 15 times. I owned it on VHS. I owned it on DVD. I owned it on Blu-ray.
Yes. And I had a friend who was obsessed with it. He and I used to get a bunch of movies and stay up all night in high school watching movies. And he was obsessed with that. Was the first time I saw it. I didn't see it in theater. he showed it to me, and I was just couldn't quite imagine what this character was. I had no awareness of him because, of course, I didn't have MTV.
Yeah, after the movie and seeing it in the theater before it left theaters, I saw it 2 more times. Because
wow.
I was plus also I was 15, just turned, and my voice was in the midst of just changing, and for about a 3-month span, I could do a really good Pee-wee voice, and then my voice changed and I couldn't do it anymore. But I mean, I think I drove my mom insane.
Yeah, she probably is not a Pee-wee fan.
No, she is, because I used to always walk around and go, there's things about me you wouldn't understand. There's things about me you couldn't understand. There's things about me you shouldn't understand. I'm a loner, Dottie. I'm a rebel. I knew every line of that movie. I mean, it was just, everybody has that one film.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a very quotable movie.
And then, so I think of those are the kind of films that give me those, warm summer nights memories going to the movies.
Right.
And I mean, just looking at the little multiplex that we have here, there's none of that happening. And I live in a more remote area.
Right.
But when I was a kid, all the time, movies were a lot cheaper, and matinees were like $1.50 or $2 depending on the theater. And so it was pretty easy to just cobble up together some money. I went to the movies all the time with my friends at the age of 10. My youngest, who's almost 11, my oldest was almost 11, he's never been to the movies by himself with a friend.
Oh, I used to go to the movies. We've talked about this completely by myself.
Me too.
So that's what summer meant. Yeah, that's what summer meant for me, was that I could be dropped off at the movie theater.
Yep. I remember. I'd have to look back at some of my charts and graphs of when I went to the movies. The first movie I went to by myself, but I think it was probably the time when I wanted to see a film, and it was something that nobody else wanted to go with me, and I just said, I'll see it by myself, I guess, and I never had a problem.
Yeah, my parents would just drop me off at the multiplex and pick me up 6 hours later.
That's crazy. Sort of like, here, go on, kid.
And I was often the only person in the theater. These would be like weekday matinees during the summer, and my parents would go to work and drop me off, at noon or something, when they were on lunch. And and often I'd buy my ticket, and they would call from the ticket booth up to the projection booth and say, "Okay, we're running on number 5 after all."
Well, that's the thing is, right? They're like, "We're going to save electricity," but there's one kid,
There's one kid is just, and he's just, and that would go on for the whole day. I'd be like the only person in the theater.
I probably think of that summer of '85, and why it was such a big one for me is after that, I got a job in early 1986 working at the movie theater. So then those summers, 86 and 87, they were filled with actually working at the movie theater. And this was the time where minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. And that's what we got. We got minimum wage. And I remember, it took you forever to save up for anything you wanted, but we could go to the movies for free. So in the summer, what they would do, and of course you could get overtime in the summer if they gave you more than a certain amount of hours, or if you had to work what they called a double. Right. And they would I'm talking about child labor laws being totally forgotten. They would put you on double shifts as soon as I turned 16. Oh, wow. So in the summers, there would be quite often where I would go to work at 11 in the morning, and I wouldn't get off till like 9 or 10 at night, but there would be like an hour to hour and a half in between so you could have dinner and stuff. And then when I became 17 the following year and I had a car, whenever we had doubles, we'd do the double, and then we would go to a movie afterwards. We'd see like the 11 o'clock show. Okay. So, when my parents say that I lived at the movie theater, I really did. I slept
really
at my house, but in the summers, I was gone. I don't even know what happened in the family during the summer. I was at the theater.
Yeah, those summers you're talking about, I was working at the video store.
So we were surrounded by movies.
And I've talked about this before, but I'd go to like the noon matinee and then go to work at the video store after
and that
that.
Sometimes what happened too is, again, it wasn't doubles every day, but say I was on for the night shift at the theater.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially if it was a Friday and a new movie was coming out, I would get
Exactly.
together with a few kids if the times worked out, and we would go see the film and then, punch in and start working.
Yeah, just anything. Squeeze in every showing you can. There was a group of us from the video store used to drive to Boston in the summer and see movies.
And then, there was this one week, my dad had a staycation. And this was, I think, 1981. And I remember because it was like, I used to keep a list of all the movies I saw. And there was this one week
Right.
where between the movie theaters and the drive-ins, we went to the theater every single day that week and saw so many things. I think we went to the drive-ins like 2 different times, and then we saw all these other films, and a lot of them I was not, old enough that I should have been seeing it, like seeing like American Werewolf in London, and I remember going to the drive-ins and seeing 1941 and something. Like I said, the drive-ins were great. Where if I didn't see a film in its first run, I could catch it a couple years later at the drive-ins.
Exactly. So, yeah, Pee-wee is a good summer movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's that's not a movie that should come out any other time except in the summer.
I've got a couple other movies that sort of they may not have come out in the summer, but I like watching them in the summer. Does that make sense? So, okay.
Yeah. It's like you have to be in the mood. This is sort of your summer, right? Your go-to
Summer movies. Yeah, I've got a few of those, and one of them I think is my favorite summer movie, and I've talked about it on the show before, so I'm going to leave out the title of the film when I read Film Fan 475's review from IMDb.
You got another.
Oh, I got another IMDb review. I'm going to leave the title out. You're going to figure it out very quickly, but I'm going to leave it out just because as it dawns on you, I think you'll enjoy that. So here we go. Film Man 475's title of the review is Worst Film of 1993.
Oh, okay.
This is one of the most boring and worst films released in 1993. Where is the plot? It's just everyone talking nonsense, and what the hell were actors like Kate Beckinsale, Denzel Washington, and Keanu Reeves were doing here wasting their talents? The dialogues are written by kids. Almost everything is below average, including direction and locations. There is no comedy here and no romance. This film is a lie. 1993 was a great year, and it had many great cinematic releases, like Hard Target and Sleepless in Seattle. But this one is boring piece of junk. This film is a waste of time and money. My rating for this is 1 out of 10. Avoid it at all costs.
Oh, man. Oh, that William Shakespeare. He doesn't know how to write a story,
No, there's no plot. Shakespeare doesn't know anything about plot. The dialogue is written by kids, and everyone is talking nonsense. So the film is a Much Ado About Nothing, which I talked about on the show before for the Valentine's episode. But to me, this is like the perfect kind of summer evening movie.
Well, yeah, because you went and spent many summer evenings seeing it in the theater with your platonic pal.
So I have that association with this movie. But I think it also really it captures Much Ado About Nothing, of course, is what we're talking about. It captures a summery feeling. It takes place in this villa in Italy. Everything is beautiful and lush. It's about love and life, and it's kind of a celebratory, funny comedy.
There's even a little Monty Python in there.
There is, yeah. Yes. I don't know what the hell actors like Kate Beckinsale were doing.
Yeah, because you can't really stack that up against classics like Hard Target, with
and Sleepless in
John
Seattle.
Claude Van Damme and Yancey Butler.
And Yancey Butler didn't John Woo direct?
Yeah, I remember
Hard Target?
seeing it in the theater because I was all excited because John Woo was making his American film debut, and then I was like, "Ooh,
Yes.
yeah, not so good."
Yeah, that was really Yeah, I remember seeing it too, and I think,
and I saw it for that specific purpose. I unlike the IMDb reviewers from last week, I'm not a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan, but and you know what? I don't even like Sleepless in Seattle that much.
Oh, I do not like that movie.
I just, it didn't do it for me.
Yeah. Me neither. But, compared to Shakespeare.
Yeah. You sure Shakespeare wrote it, or maybe some kids?
Maybe some kids wrote it. There were a bunch of other reviews that were slamming it as not being good enough Shakespeare.
This is where like I said, this is the whole point of why I hate these reviews, because the person puts 1 out of 10 because they want the overall ratings for the movie to drop. And the only way they can do that is to put it as a 1 star. And I just find that, indicative of what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, but this person really did hate this movie.
Why would they even watch the film like this? It doesn't sound like it's their bag.
I don't. No, it's definitely not their kind of
Have you ever
flick.
done? I mean, again, I don't think this is something we've had prepared in advance. But has there ever been a movie that so defied your expectations in the wrong way that you just wanted to give it a 1-star review, that you thought, hey, this is going to be a great film, and then you go and see it, and then afterwards you're like so angry that it's terrible?
Okay, I almost never leave reviews on anything.
Right.
I don't write them down. Now, there's one movie that I hated so much that I actually left a review on Netflix.
Wow. Okay.
It's the only time I've done that.
I've never written a review for Netflix.
Yeah, I did this once because I was so angry.
Maybe this is why they don't let you write reviews for Netflix anymore. Just a thumbs up or thumbs down, thanks to you.
And it's a lame movie to get. You probably haven't even seen it.
Maybe.
It's called The Strangers with Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler.
You're saying invasion. I haven't seen it. Oh, I've seen it, sir. I've seen it. Yes, it even has Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in it.
Yes, it does.
I've seen it.
And are you a fan of it?
I guess if I was a fan, then I would have been excited that they made a sequel of sorts years later. I did not see the sequel, so I mean, did I hate it enough that I wanted to write a review on Netflix? Probably no. But it's one of those films of dread. I don't know. I don't like films like that.
See, I do like films like that, but I felt like this one was completely soulless and bleak and cynical.
Have you ever seen the spoof trailer they did on Saturday Night Live that was as if Wes Anderson made a movie like that, called The Midnight Coterie of Sinister Invaders?
I have not seen that.
It's the best.
Okay, I'm going to throw out a few more summer titles.
Wait. Before you do that, I just want a little plug. This is a great summer movie that now you can watch on either Hulu or Amazon Prime. We just watched it the other night, and for a summer movie streaming in your living room, I enjoyed it. Was The Spy Who Dumped Me.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, I wouldn't go out and spend big money for it, but if it's there in your living room and you have Amazon Prime, it's a summer movie. Would have been great at the drive-ins.
Okay, when I was 18, I moved to New York.
Yes.
I think this movie came out that summer when I first moved to New York. And when I went to see it in the theater, it was similar to that Pee-wee experience. Now, it was different, but it was similar in the sense that the audience was completely energized in a way that is rare, and in a way that, again, I missed a lot
Last
of dialogue.
Temptation of Christ?
Of
No, just kidding. That was 88 anyway, but...
No, this is Do the Right Thing.
Oh, you saw that in New York City.
I saw it in New York City in the theater.
And of course, we're at the 30th anniversary.
Yes, we are at the 30th anniversary. And that was an experience for me. And I think it's a great summer movie, too. It's about
the hottest day of the summer in New York. And we all know how hot it can be in New York City in the summer.
And so sort of coming into the air-conditioned theater out of off the hot streets of Manhattan and seeing this movie with an audience that was just whooping and hollering. And they were angry at parts and emotionally, they were just really into the movie. And yeah, I recommend it as a summer movie if you're up for that kind of thing. If you want something a little lighter, I'd recommend Grease.
Well, that's a great summer movie, right? That was a huge box office hit. I didn't see it until the fall that year when I was a kid. It's funny, the songs were on the radio, and I had no connection that the songs I was listening to on the radio were from a movie called Grease. I had no idea. Like, even when you'd hear the song Grease is the Word, when it was, I don't think I even made a connection.
We only listened to classical music radio, so I hadn't heard this.
This Dickensian environment that you grew up in. And it's
serious.
Funny, I'm trying to tell people that it is true. I know you, so I know this really happened, even though it sounds totally ridiculous and fake.
But somehow we did go see Grease.
Now that is interesting.
And so I saw it in the theater when it came out, but it was censored.
It was?
Yes.
That's insane. I mean, it should have been a PG-13 movie, but that didn't exist back then. But
well, there's that Blue Moon section.
Oh, they edited that out?
They edited it out. It came up on the screen. It said censored, and the section was cut out.
I think somebody was doing that on their own because they didn't release a censored version.
No. The theater had done this themselves.
And I say that because, around the same time, it was only early end of the year before, Saturday Night Fever comes out. Huge hit.
Right.
And lots of adults saw it. But for some reason, the adults thought kids would like it too. So they actually did release an edited PG version, and it went into theaters. And at the time, we were living in this town of Lexington. And we went to the local tiny little movie theater house there to see it. And I remember my sister and I finding this movie completely boring. And my parents just saying, well, it would make a lot more sense if it wasn't when you see it someday unedited. And then when I did get to see it unedited, it was like an entirely different movie.
I can't imagine.
Oh, my God. I know. They had to cut so much out. So wow. That's why I was like, I don't think they ever did that with Grease. But somebody just took it upon themselves to say, we can't show those fannies.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
And then there's all this language. I mean, that's the funny part is most of the songs are filthy. And as a kid, you don't know that. Know that there's a swear word in those, but you don't even know the context of these songs. And if you actually listen to the lyrics now, you're like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, no, you get none of the innuendo. I was 7 when this movie came out. I got nothing. There were just at that age, it's just like colors moving around on the screen. Right?
Yes. But we enjoyed it, right? I mean, it wasn't one of my all-time favorite movies, even as a kid, but I liked it. I'm trying to think.
My sister loved. I mean, and that's why I was allowed to see this movie. I think, or taken to it, is because my sister begged to go see Grease. And they couldn't just leave me at home alone.
Well, that's the benefit of the younger child, right? My youngest gets to see a lot of things only because it's just too hard when you have the older kid wants to watch these things. And sometimes he's not even interested. So as long as sometimes if you don't exclude him, he'll just on his own say, I'm not interested. Whereas if he's not allowed, that's when he wants to watch it, right?
Right.
Kids always want to watch what they're not allowed to watch.
I was trying to get my daughters to watch Lawrence of Arabia with me.
Forget that. That's no.
So we watched the trailer.
Did they make it through the trailer?
My youngest said she didn't want to see it because it looked like there was too much war and fighting.
And you know what? The thing is, I don't want to say that that's a guy's movie, but there isn't a single female in the whole movie, and so. I don't think
you're right.
Women, especially young girls, there's nothing for them to get excited about in that movie.
It's true. I loved it at that
I know
age.
that's why when I showed it to my oldest, I expected it would be 5 minutes, and then he doesn't want to watch it. He watched the entire movie and didn't understand any of the history stuff, but he loved it.
Yeah, I absolutely didn't understand any of the history stuff when I watched it, but the first time I saw it as a kid. But I loved it. I found the character and Peter O'Toole himself to just be super charismatic, and I was fascinated by it.
You know what movie we're watching now? Like, we watch it in chunks because when you have like a kid, one is too young, to watch these things, so you have to wait till they go to bed, and then you can only watch so much. The other kid will have to go to bed. We're watching with our oldest, and he's digging it. We still have about like 40 minutes to go. It's a movie that you refuse to watch. No Country for Old Men.
Oh, you're
I haven't watched it a lot. It's really good. You got to check that out.
Is it a summer movie?
No, something has to get edited in this episode. It'll be just this moment. It's totally not. But we're watching it in the summer, so I guess it counts. No, what's a great summer? Couple of summer films that I saw them at the drive-in as a double bill. And this is another thing the drive-ins would do. They'd re-release movies, and they'd make it like just kind of like to get a weekend's worth of box office out of it. And then they'd pair it up with something. So I didn't catch it when it first came out because my parents thought that even though it was PG and I thought, hey, it's PG, they said, no, this movie's way too dirty. So a year later, it got re-released for the beginning of the summer. I got to see at the drive-ins Meatballs and Airplane.
Oh,
Airplane. It was I just think of all the double feature pairings at the drive-in. That was probably one of the best. And you know what we haven't even talked about? Because you haven't been to the drive-ins as much as me. Another big thing in the summer with drive-ins, horror movies. Horror movies were always there to fill the very beginning of the summer because they didn't have any movies yet.
Right. And so those were the horror movies that had come out the fall before. Or a horror movie,
those are so low budget and their distribution was different. So whereas, say it's...
Oh, they might be first run.
Let's say Star Wars is not going to be shown at the drive-ins until it's come out of the first run theaters. However, Memorial Day weekend, you could get Blood Beach. Or The Boogans, or Motel Hell.
Okay.
And I saw a lot of those.
I did. Motel Hell is actually pretty good.
Yeah, well, it takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters, as the tagline went. I enjoyed it. Those are like movies that, again, horror movies are just perfect for the drive-in because you can only concentrate so hard at the drive-in. So it's kind of about a bunch of other things. And sometimes, if you're older, and I'm not talking about like teenage years, and it's funny because that's what that Mike McQuilkin was talking about. When he was a kid seeing movies at the drive-ins, he was looking over at the van of like older kids throwing beer bottles and having a good time watching our movies and going, I want to be those kids. Those are just like, all these memories of the summer and seeing films that I don't know if today's kids, I think it's just a different experience. They go, and see the big super Marvel movie and they may see it in a big theater. So maybe that's the experience. And I try to do that for my kids.
That is the experience. When we went and saw that last Marvel movie, it was just a big crowded theater, and I don't know. I don't want to get into
no. But movies, those are still movies that you expect to see in the summer. The only difference is they seem to sprinkle them out every 2 months.
Okay, a couple more. You want some more titles?
Give me some more titles.
I got. Okay, here's one that's a summer thriller. For some reason, this movie just seems summery to me. Talented Mr. Ripley.
That didn't come out in the summer.
No, it didn't.
For award season. Love that movie, though. Well, probably because it takes place in Venice and, it has that sort of...
It has a summery ambiance, yeah.
That movie is so good, by the way.
It's really good.
The book is great. When you have great source material, then it takes real hard work to screw it up, but, Hollywood does all the time. But, it's perfectly cast. It's really well directed. Yes. It has a vibe. They use sort of jazzy music in it. I love that film. I saw it a couple of years ago as a rewatch, and it held up.
And it holds up. Yeah, it is. you can screw up good source material because there are some bad Ripley films.
So which ones are you talking? Because it's funny. There's a revival house showing, I think, Blue Moon or Bitter Moon or something. It's one that had Alain Delon, and it's a French version of Talented Mr. Ripley.
I have not seen that.
And then there's The American Friend from the 70s, and I think that's based on Ripley's Game.
Yes.
And I haven't seen that, but that is on Criterion, so I do want to check that out.
Yeah, I have not seen that
so
either.
which one are you talking about?
And then isn't there a Malkovich one?
Oh, that's Ripley's Game. That's the remake, which they actually call Ripley's Game, which I haven't seen. It's not good?
Okay, that one's not. Well, it's not. It's no Talented Mr. Ripley.
Mr. Ripley. Maybe now, you know what? If they, what's his face is getting up there. Matt Damon. Maybe that he can do Ripley's Game now. Well, there's like 5
They
books.
should.
I know. I think
yeah.
I've read Ripley's Game and The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Okay, here is the classic summer movie, which we can't do a summer movie episode without just mentioning The 7-Year Itch.
What?
Yeah, The 7-Year Itch.
See, now you're really stretching. First of all, when did it even come out?
Well, I don't know.
You and I would have no memories of watching this thing in the summer.
No. It's just a movie about the summer.
But that doesn't necessarily make it a summer movie. Whereas, like, I buy the Talented Ripley being a summer movie more than I buy the 7-Year Itch being a summer movie.
Okay, how about Dazed and Confused?
I mean, it's the start of a summer movie, I guess. It takes place at the I think there's a different genre altogether. That's the coming of age film, Like that's the beginning of the summer as they're getting ready to move on, and American Graffiti is the end of the summer as they're getting ready to move on.
Right.
They're the bookends.
Yeah, see, I think they're the bookends, but I think they are, to me, they associate them with summer.
Here's a movie that I know you don't like, and I think we'll talk about this on a different program. And that program will be movies that are no longer appropriate for youngsters. Is The Goonies is a summer movie all the way.
Yes, The Goonies. Okay, so yeah, I see where you're going. I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not movies with summer in the title, or just reminding me Katharine Hepburn Summertime. That's got Venice and summer.
I'm looking for movies that capture the feeling of summer for me. And Dazed and Confused does that.
If you say so.
Well, for me,
the summer hasn't started. School just ends, so I don't know. It doesn't capture the summer, but I like. You know what it is? It's that evening, getting together with all your friends, no adults around,
it's the sort of the anticipation of the summer and this release as school ends, and you suddenly are given this freedom for a few months.
I hear you. Yeah, where my summer's really soaked in the nostalgia of the kind of movies that I saw during the summer.
Right. Well, one movie that I personally, and I've talked about this on the show before too, but I associate with summer because I worked in the video store during the summer, and so it'd be hot outside and it'd be light out late, but every Monday night at the video store we watched The Natural. And this movie is just embedded in my memory of summer for a few years in high school when I was working at the video store. And, it's about baseball, so I guess it is kind of summery, but I just have it embedded in my mind along with these long nights at the video store.
I'll buy that. I mean, because, again, it's associated with your memory where you would actually, when you think of that movie, you're not just thinking about the film. It's taking you back in time.
Yeah, to those summers of, watching The Natural in the video store. Often it would be pretty slow, in the 10 to midnight range at the store.
No, I mean, when I worked at a video store, I'm trying to think of when I got that job. I think I got the job at the beginning of my senior year, and then I left it before the end of my senior year. So I don't have any video store memories at the summer now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's when we watched The Natural. And I rewatched The Natural recently, and it holds up. It's a good movie.
A couple of years ago I watched it with my oldest, and he enjoyed it. I mean, he's not a baseball fan, but, he really liked it.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, I guess it's a baseball movie, but it's not, I can understand him not being a baseball fan and still liking it. I don't think you need to be into the
Yeah,
sport. To
yeah.
like
No,
this
good
movie.
movies. It doesn't matter what the topic is. A good movie you can be into. Yeah. I mean, I remember other films like again those hot. Slow days of summer where
Yes.
I might go to an afternoon show. My mom, there was this whole thing where we had this one theater, the Burlington Mall Theater, and it was the smaller one. And sometimes, at least, I think it was just my mental perception that all the good movies went to the Showcase Woburn, and that had more screens. And then kind of like some of the also-rans seemed to go to this Burlington theater, but that wasn't always true. They sometimes got a few bones. But they got the movie Valley Girl. And it was in the summer, and it was one of those things where just, it was August, and they were just starting to release stuff for like a week or whatever. And the Burlington had this unspoken policy. I think it was something that was just a rumor that got passed around by a friend. And so if nobody told me any different, I was going to go with it. That if your parents bought you the ticket to a rated R movie, you could go in without them, and that the Burlington... And I don't know if that's true. I don't think that was, I mean, certainly not supposed to be that way. But I told my mom this, and my mom didn't care what we saw, right? So my sister and I went to see The Valley Girl, and that was like, 83 or something? And so I'm only 13, and my sister's only 11. And I remember the whole time we were in there, because I could tell it was just not an appropriate movie for kids our age, I thought someone was going to tell on us and get us kicked out. And so I was worried more that we weren't going to make it through the whole screening, but we did. And then because of that, like I kept on getting my mom to buy us tickets. Like she bought me tickets to see Psycho 2, and my sister and I went and saw that.
Right.
And it was great because I just kept on finding ways to be able to see rated R movies. Anyways, guys, we could talk about summer forever, and we could, but we won't. So I'm going to say goodbye. And, the good news is here it is summer. We thought we weren't going to be taping. We're taping. And I think we're going to try to do another episode next week, hopefully. And maybe we'll see the Midsummer and we can talk about that. And, Millennial, if you're listening, and then you can get yourself organized with a proper microphone and attachment, maybe you could come on and tell us what your thoughts of Midsummer is.
Tell us how we're wrong about it.
Yes. Or you can write a review on the site.
No matter how I feel about it, I'm prepared to be wrong.
There you go. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody, and go see some stuff. It's summer.
Bye-bye.